Hi guys, today we are going to be playing a game called A Date with Denial. It's another one of those ones where we end up with a guy possibly kidnapped. You know the story. Yeah, here we go. Warning, this game contains depictions of blood and corpses as well as character that manipulates the player. Viewer discretion is advised. You have been warned. You see I take the parts that I remember and stitch them back together to make a creature that will do as I say, or love me back. Richard Silken. Okay. I could smell two distinct smells. The delicious, savory smell of food, and the familiar scent of candles burning. I sat up straight and opened my eyes. Are you all right, my darling muse? My eyes adjusted to the darkness. You appear rather bewildered. Was the wine a tad too strong? Okay. I'm not sure what's going on here. Okay. Who are you? In the dim candlelight, I could see the man's expression shift at the question. There was a brief look of offense and sorrow before he gave me a warm smile. Why, I'm Zecharias. Of course, we have known each other for a while, my muse. In fact, we were in the middle of a dinner date before you appeared a little disoriented. Zecharias, that name did ring a bell. But as far as I know, I don't remember going on a date with someone by that name. Surely you have not forgotten. To ensure that you are all right, do you still remember your name at least? My name is Zemo. Get it. Sure. That is quite a relief. You do seem to be less muddled right now. Perhaps we can continue our lovely dinner date. Let's look at the food. Before me on a large white plate was my favorite food. Warm steam wafted upwards from it. It seemed it was just freshly prepared. The smell was delicious. I could feel my stomach rumble slightly. Beside my plate was a glass of wine, full and untouched. I'm kind of afraid to eat the food, so let's look at the items on the table. The table contained two large plates, one before me and the other before Zecharias, as well as the usual accompanying cutlery. Wow, words are so freaking hard sometimes. There was a bottle of wine, its label too difficult to read in the flickering candlelight, and a wine glass beside my plate. Zacharias' wine glass was in his hand. I have made sure that your absolute favorite food has been prepared for you. Please, my muse, partake in the meal. Alright, we'll try a bite, I guess. Zacharias smiles as he watches me eat. It was a warm, loving smile, but it twisted a little more than it should, showing off his surprisingly sharp teeth. I hope you do savor each bite. Do partake in the wine as well, my muse. Or perhaps, if a strong drink is not to your dietary preference, I can rest for the preparations of other drinks to your liking. We're just gonna roll with it, because, why not? Accept the drink. I would like another type of drink if it's okay. Of course. Anything to make you happy, dearest muse. What would you prefer? Perhaps a fragrant tea? Water. Of course. I shall return swiftly. Do enjoy the meal in the meantime. He stood up, pushing back his chair noiselessly, and strode off somewhere behind me, taking his wine glass with him. His movements were naturally graceful, like that of a dancer. Let's look around. After he left, I finally began to take note of my surroundings. With him at the table, and especially when he spoke to me, it felt like I had tunnel vision, only able to look and listen to him. The rest of the world around me seemed to have melted away. But now that he was gone, I could finally bring myself to look around. I seemed to be in a large, rather dark hall. I was startled and amazed to see that two of the walls was a glass wall separating the hall from a massive body of water. The ceiling was also made of glass. I could just see what seemed to be the surface of the water through it. It looked a lot like large aquariums I used to visit as a child, but the water seemed to go on forever. I felt like I was in the middle of the ocean. There were tables similar to ours scattered throughout the hall. It appeared to be some sort of fancy restaurant. The only light in the hall came from the glass walls, as well as the candles on our table and all of the tables around ours. The water beyond the glass walls cast a blue, sickly-looking light on everything. Let's stand up and look around. I stood up, slowly moving towards one of the glass walls. As I passed by one of the tables, I noticed that it was empty, even though the candles were lit and the table was set. All the tables were empty. I was the only one in the hall. I turned my attention to the water on the other side of the glass wall. The water was a greenish blue. It faded away into darkness in the distance. There seemed to be a dim light coming from the surface of the water, shining down through the ceiling. What seemed to be lotus flowers floated on the surface of the water. There were no leaves or stalks, just flowers. There were no fish of any sort in the aquarium. I could hear a distant noise, a very soft, continuous noise. It came from the water beyond the glass walls. I went closer to the walls and listened closely. It was unmistakably the sound of a distant voice singing. The voice was too distant for me to make out any words. All I could tell was that it was a deep voice. And it was an absolutely beautiful voice. I found myself standing completely still, one hand pressed on the cold glass wall, only wanting to listen to that voice. If I could, I wanted to break the glass wall to be closer to the voice, so I could hear what it was singing. But I was aware of how foolish that would be. Let's go look at the canvas. After some effort, I managed to move away from the glass wall. I turned to where the canvas stood. The light that once shone down has been turned off, but I could still see my portrait in the faint blue glow. Zecharias was very good at painting. I stood before the canvas, admiring the painting, but also thinking, trying to remember. I didn't recall agreeing to let him use me as an inspiration for his art. But how did I meet him? I struggled to think. In the back of my mind, hazy and distant, I began to remember empty corridors, empty rooms, empty halls, miles upon miles of bizarre, empty buildings, filled with mismatched rooms, corridors, and stairs. Seeing him in one such empty location, accepting his invitation, and then... But what came before that? How did I enter such a place? I closed my eyes, trying hard to think. The singing, while faint in distance, was making it difficult to hold on to any thoughts. 4. There were 4 people. 4 of us. I could not remember the faces of the other 3. They were but hazy shadows in my mind. But I remember. Backpacks, sleeping bags, candles, bottles of water. Entering an old building. Suddenly the singing grew louder, much clearer. I opened my eyes and raised my head. I became aware the voice was no longer coming from beyond the glass, but was now approaching from behind me. Ah, my muse. The singing stopped, and I could hear Zecharias' familiar voice speak to me. I turned around to see Zecharias standing behind me. In his hand was an ornate glass of water. Were you perhaps searching for me? I'm dreadfully sorry for taking so long. He smiled, politely gesturing back towards their table. Come, dine with me. We're about to have a lovely time together. He moved over to his seat, humming cheerfully as he did. Upon hearing his humming, I found myself walking back to the table. I wasn't even aware I was doing it. I simply walked back without thinking. I sat down, absent-mindedly gazing at him. He settled down in his seat and took a sip of his wine glass. It seemed to have reappeared in his hand. I don't recall seeing him bring it back into the hall when he returned with my drink. After you have eaten your fill, we shall continue with the painting. And after that, if you're not too tired, perhaps you can listen to my singing. I wish to compose a song inspired by you, my lovely muse. So perhaps you can help me. Yeah, that sounds nice. Zacharias. Yes, love. Can I ask you some questions? If it would please you, then yes, of course, my dear muse. These clothes, there's something strange about them. What is unusual about your attire, my muse? Same color as yours? We didn't even look at our clothes. How do I know this? Okay, okay, let's go with, I remember carrying, I'm gonna end up dead, aren't I? That was a while ago. You have changed your attire since then. But why was I carrying a backpack before this? I remember having a backpack with a sleeping bag and candles in it. Where are they? You mentioned that I was disoriented before this. What happened? You simply fell unconscious. I was quite concerned, but unsure of what to do. I am relieved that you woke after that. How did it happen? I believe it could be the strength of the wine. That's why I suggested to offer you a different drink with less body. Let's go with my food was still steaming hot when I woke up. You were not unconscious for an extended amount of time, I suppose. What is in your wine glass? It looks bit different from the type in mine. He gave an aside glance, swirling at the drink in his glass again. It's similar, but no, it's a different type of wine with an addition suited to my palate. I do not believe you will enjoy it. You mentioned you finished your food before me. What did you eat? Meat. A dish of the meat variety. A steak. Let's go with, how did you finish your meal so quickly? He gave me a small, sheepish grin. I am a quick eater. I enjoyed the taste of meat and finished the dish before you started yours and before you fell unconscious. I apologize for not waiting for you to start your meal. Now please, enjoy your meal as I have enjoyed mine. Where are we right now? I've never seen a place like this before. We are in a lovely restaurant that I have booked prior to our dinner date. Why are we underwater? This restaurant is surrounded by an aquarium. I do enjoy being close to the ocean. That is why I desired for a restaurant that looked like this. Why is the water so deep? The aquarium is connected to the ocean, I suppose. That is why the water runs so deep. He was clearly beginning to grow a little frustrated by my questions. What he said didn't really make much sense to me, but I did not know what else to ask in response. How long have we known each other? As I mentioned, we have known each other for a while now. However, this is the first time we are dining together. Let's push it. I believe that is quite enough questions. Perhaps it is time we had a different conversation, one that is less intrusive. But first, you must sleep. Sleep and forget. Sleep and let your fears vanish. He began humming. Sleep, my muse. He sang to me, his voice growing gentle and soothing. Sleep and forget. I felt my eyelids growing heavy despite myself. I could not keep my head lifted up. Forget, and we shall do this all again. I felt my head resting on the table. Let us have a lovely date with no suspicions or fear. My lovely muse. I could smell two distinct smells. The delicious savory smell of food and the familiar scent of candles burning. I sat up straight and opened my eyes. Okay, how many times has he done this? Like, if every time we get suspicious, he's just gonna make us go to sleep and do this all over again? Ugh, okay, here we go again. Are you alright, my darling muse? Oh, okay, that was the ending. Okay. I was kind of afraid I was going to have to go through that all over again. So, it's not a bad ending per se, but, well, you're on a loop. So maybe just stop asking questions and roll with it. Maybe that's what I should have done. Anyway, this is an interesting game. So I will leave the link in the description per usual. If you're interested, there are a couple, I think there were either 2 or 3 endings, so there's probably maybe 1 or 2 more endings that you can get with this game. It's short and interesting. This particular character actually shows up in a couple other games, and I think I'm going to download those and we'll play those as well. So there's that. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.